So I will start with the security apparatus for the election. So we'll start with Commissioner Mitna, and we'll move across to Brigadier Opa, and we'll finish with Ms. Bagi. And in between, because a lot of these issues will have to center around planning and financing, Secretary Oika, you will be called upon to respond to some of these issues that may be raised by your colleague public servants who are sitting on either side of you. So that is the structure we will follow today. And so with that, I'm going to start with direct my questions to Acting Commissioner Mitna. First of all, just a correction for my benefit. Are you the Acting Commissioner or you're a Deputy Commissioner?
Yes, I'm the Deputy Commissioner Acting.
Deputy Commissioner Acting. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so that is how we will start. My first question to you, Acting Commissioner, has your department read through the recommendations of this committee? Can someone help with the microphone, please?
Yes. Chair, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We have read through the recommendations, and we made some recommendations too during the last debrief election 2022. So we are aware of the cracks, the faults we have within the security apparatus.
Okay, thank you. Now, seeing that your the constabulary has read the recommendations, I presume you have come up with a strategic plan to implement them. And if so, could you outline for us those recommendations that you have managed to action to date?
Thank you, Chair. If I may run through a summary of what I have, and I think I'll probably highlight most of the things that you would want to ask, and then you can ask me after the short.
You may. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. First and foremost, I think the security apparatus consisting of the CS, the police, and the PNGDF, we provide the security overlay for the elections. We don't take over the responsibility for the Electoral Commission. We have a draft, what we call the KONOPS, or the Concept of Operation for 2027, learning from the experience of 2022. It's in the draft stage. It's a replica of what we have in 2022. We are now waiting. We are mindful of the number of electorates that have been included for 2027. So we will be waiting for the EC to supply us with the number of electorates, with the polling booths, the roving stations, and then we can incorporate that. Our plan, operational, the concept of operation relies heavily on the information that we will get from EC. The biggest threat we face is the proliferation of firearms, and we are mindful of that. I think we've started preliminary into the threats, particularly up in the Highlands West. Highlands West includes Enga, Hela, and Southern Islands. And from time to time, we've been echoing the same sentiment about the singular gun report. If only it can be tabled, it has relevance today. If only it can table in Parliament, and we can carry on from there. Although it's quite outdated, but I believe some of the key things in that report, some of the recommendations can be implemented. Although it's late, but going forward into the future, I think we need to relook at the single gun report and action some of the items. A large portion or a large chunk of the problems we're facing with firearms and ammunition can be resolved if only we take a step back, sit down, and look at the single gun report. Funding. We need funding. Two things are key to these operations. Intelligence-led operation. We cannot go into any operations without intelligence. We need our men on the ground. we've been doing that. The last election, I don't think we had support from NIO. We had to rely heavily on our PPC and information from social media. And that's not, in an operational perspective, it's not good. We need to rely heavily on the security overlay for the entire country and from each provinces. So intelligence is very important. So we need funding to send out our man intel to just collect information. Any operation orders that is drafted from headquarters or at the operation level must be based on intelligence we receive on the ground. And awareness. Awareness is something, awareness is the biggest, is also one of the two key things are important in this program. Post-election deployment, awareness and intelligence. We need to start collectively as not only the police but the Electoral Commission and those who will be, those agencies directly responsible must be on the ground to just to make people aware of the coming election. It happens once in every 5 years. It's one of the biggest operations we look forward to, but as it is now, from the security perspective, I think we are lagging behind in our post-election deployment. I can't comment on the common role, but for us, we'd like to know the number of polling booths, roving stations, so that we can implement it. I think for the 2027, we are prepared. We are prepared with our KONOPS in draft form. All we need is information and intel to be inserted into the planning. There is a need to cover slightly bigger budget in 2027, particularly with air support. Experience from 2020 shows previous budget did not cover some operational requirements. 194 million kina was allocated for the 2022 election. The 20% budget requested has not been submitted yet. One of the biggest operational costs in 2030 was the aviation-related support, helicopters particularly, not only in Allan but across the country, to move security forces. It's one of the major logistical, it's a massive logistical nightmare for us. Shipping not only the police, the security forces, but including those we provide security to, particularly the Electoral Commission staff. Commissioner Manning is currently working on international partners to support the movement of security forces to ensure fair and transparent election process. But again, for us as an organization, as a country, election is the key responsibility for the government. It must take full responsibility. We go to donor partners when the need arises, but I think for elections, it's one of the major things that happens every 5 years, and the government must take responsibility. Assistant Commissioner responsible for Operation Julius Station is representing RPNG on the IDEC. IDEC is this representative of all the key agencies that will be involved in the operation. It's not taking away the role from the EC, but providing that support to the EC, but at the agency level, it provides that coordination. So, ACP Tasion, responsible for special operation, is tasked on behalf of the RPNG to represent. IDEC brings together all agencies to play key roles in the democratic election process, and the RPNG is fully committed to support the IDEC. The RPNG has initiated the phased provincial deployment and readiness timeline for 2020 election. Again, we are ready. We are ready. All we need is information and intel to be inserted into some of the key things that need to be worked on. We will deploy in excess of 6,000 plus regular, including the reserve branch. That's from the police, but we have not included the number that will come in from the defense and the CS. But for us, last election, or top from Oman as a chief planner, we included about 10,000. We hope to increase that number to 12 to 15,000, depending on the numbers that we have. But we have recruited number of recruits over the years, but they are not ready for deployment. But there will be a base at the station, but we are using special force to do the deployment, particularly when it comes to operations. Election-related violence has made previous elections with an increase in manpower to support elections, and it is the key strategy. Increasing our manpower, not only within the regular branch, but the reserve branch as well. We remain focused on this election, and we have kick-started planning last year, and then we continue to support IDEC. I think January 12, I think, was the first meeting. And this time, I think we hope to work closely with the NI and those security agencies supporting intel for us, so we can have an appreciation of what's. Every province is not the same. We'd like to have an appreciation of what it's the security arising from each province. Security in PNG has changed over the last few years, a decade or so. relatively few, relatively peaceful provinces have now turned violent. So that's the change shift. So we cannot be complacent on particularly Highlands East or West rather. It's the entire country. So that added, that's the biggest challenge for us, the security apparatus to focus on. But I think to sum up, you can ask, but I think to sum up, I think that's basically what I intend to bring to the table. And I'm ready to answer any question that is asked from the chat. Thank you.
Thank you, Acting Commissioner Mitna, for that report. Just a question on the comprehensive security plan that you have. Could you disclose the key components to the committee? And when will you formalize it, rather than leave it draft? This is the time to start working on it. We are tired of hearing draft plans. So when will you formalize that plan? Disclose the key components of that. Tell the committee and the country the timeline for implementation, and tell the country how does it differ from last plan for 2022 national elections.
January 13th, 2026, we started the preparation on the IDEC. That was the official start of the national elections. February 2026, this month, we've allocated 1 million kina of funding directly into the PPCs to help support with the election. Early law and order operation risk assessment, tactical planning, commencement of coordination between the Electoral Commission and IDEC to map out resource needs. March next month, we start a large-scale training for electoral and security personnel. Mid-2026, hopefully we should get some of our accommodation in the provinces fixed. 200 personnel barracks accommodation. With personnel integration of the first batch of the new recruits, targeting about 700 plus into the provincial rotation, particularly up in the Highlands. And late 2027, we are targeting the formation of provincial electoral security task forces in all provinces to monitor online activity and local hotspots. Early 2027, it will be the early deployment of specialized units, including mobile, CID squad, mobile squads, and the Kumul 2023. Up to now, we cannot deploy. We'd like a operation that is led by Intel. We are relying heavily on our PPCs at the moment, but we'd like to have an operation of the entire country, provided by NIO. The details of the secret, it's a draft. When I say draft, it's there. It's there. All we need is endorsement, funding to kickstart some of the, particularly the awareness. Two things make up the post-election phase is the funding for awareness and for intel gathering. Otherwise, it's the same thing, a replica, but we need to know how many polling booths we will have in 2027. And that information will come from EC. So all we need information to fill in and we can launch early, particularly with the security forces.
How many times have you met with your colleague, the Defence Force, in terms of the preparations on the security so far?
I think this year we met twice, two times regarding the elections, but we've met constantly over the couple of the last, I think, several times, particularly with operations and those operations that require joint ops with the defense. So it's an ongoing thing. We still maintain that contact at the operational level. As we speak, we have an ongoing operations up in progress, or at the operational level as we're in constant contact. Elections we started, and then the idea is to embed one of our officers into IRC to help with the planning, to EC. So that's something fairly new we are doing, learning from the experience in 2027. We will embed one of our operational officers from SSD into EC to be the liaison officer directly instead of IDEC.
But you asked for the single report to be presented. I'm sure as a constitutional force in the country, there are actions that your agency needs to take with regards to the issue of guns. You don't have to wait for the report to be formally presented to Parliament, but there are actions that you should take. What components of the report are you looking at to operationalize in preparation for the 2027 elections?
I believe the gun report has not been tabled in Parliament, and I don't have a copy. If only it can table and endorse in Parliament, I think it still has relevance. Some will need support from the police, but others, it's a collective effort from all the community leaders. So the report has not been tabled in Parliament. I have yet to see the copy, but I believe there are recommendations in that report that are relevant in this era. Thank you.
If I may, in relation to, again, there are certain things that the RPNGC is expected to do under criminal law in terms of enforcement. Now, it's my understanding that anyone who brandishes a weapon, not just firearms, in a threatening manner is actually guilty of an offense. You can correct me if I'm wrong. To what extent is the RPNGC, like we see on social media, there's a soldier walking next to a tribal warlord and they're both carrying guns. And there are police officers who will be walking next to a bunch of tribal warriors, all tribal terrorists or whatever, carrying firearms. I guess to me and to many other Papua New Guineans, that would be, you know, you've got a lawbreaker walking next to somebody who is supposed to be enforcing the law. To what extent is the RPNGC prevented, and what are the things that are preventing you from, you know, to carry on from what Honorable Puka has asked you, from making an arrest right then and there and confiscating those weapons? What is stopping you from doing that, quite independently of the Singiro report?
So I think nothing stops us from making arrests, and I think we have failed in that regard. We should have effected arrest there and then. That's the simple answer I can get. We have defaulted, we have not performed our roles, duties as law enforcement officers. Arrest should be made there and then. There is nothing preventing us, and we take that responsibility.
Operationally, what are you doing, given the overwhelming evidence that people carrying illegal weapons do so quite flagrantly? Operationally, what are you doing to, or what have you done to get your officers to act? It's one thing to say you failed, and we accept that. What are you doing to ensure that that failure is not consistently carried out into the future? As a force, I'm not saying to you personally, but as a constabulary, what institutional reforms have you taken to ensure that that practice of officers of the law colluding, cooperating with obvious lawbreakers, brandishing illegal weapons, to what extent have you acted to try to prevent that or stop it from happening in the future?
So I think so far, for me, we've taken two approaches. We've dealt with officers, we've gone out of line, and we've dismissed some, if not many, particularly with firearms. I think that's the only one we can do internally within the department. The other one, we have not stopped arresting people. We have been arresting people, particularly up in that part of the region, and on record we have made some convictions with firearms. Although we may not do the arrest there and then because of the limited number of policemen in that particular area at that time, but we have backtracked and made some significant arrests, particularly with those supplying firearms and those in possession. And I make reference to a few cases in Hagen and Southern Islands who were brought into Hagen to be charged and played back. That's one. But for us officers, particularly the police officers, we've dealt with. I think the biggest attrition rate within the police is dismissals. We have zero tolerance about policemen not acting the way they should be acting, so ill discipline. So we've done a lot last year alone. We've done about 76, 77, and that's more than a squad in the police. A squad is 30. We've done almost all the squad dismissals, and the majority have to do with firearms.
Okay, thank you. Now, what would you say to our people to assure them, particularly given that the elections are imminent next year, in relation to firearms? Obviously, it's an issue, and you are, as a constabulary, you've indicated in your plans that you want to do something about it. How are you going about that? One. Two, in terms of the public, the public is actually worried about all of these firearms and I guess other illegal weapons. What would you say to the people, our people, to reassure them that there are actions you are currently taking or you intend to take in the near future to reduce the number of illegal weapons available within some of our affected communities?
My advice would be to return firearms, because I think probably, and I must commend Wagambi, ACP Wagambi on that, because through intelligence driven we've done a lot of arrests, particularly up in the Highlands. But if they don't want to be arrested, the wise thing is to return firearms or surrender firearms. Currently, I think the police minister is declaring a firearms amnesty, I think. We will support, but that's intel. But for those in possession of illegal firearms, it's good to arrest, because Wangabi has done a tremendous job by not going making peace. He's going intelligence driven, is making arrest, and we've done considerable changes.
Well, sorry for interrupting, but isn't that your job? You're not there to make peace. You are there to enforce the law.
Exactly, sir. We make peace. Peacemaking is secondary to the primary role of law enforcement. So Wagambi, basically ACP Wagambi is just enforcing what needs to be done, so based on intel. So we've done considerable since November last year, and some of the things we disclose to the media, others we don't. So I've been informed via WhatsApp every time what it's doing. So based on intelligence, we're going into those stronghold spots also that we suspect there's firearms, and with support from the defense. I must commend the commander for letting his men supporting the SSD to do what they need to do. So we've done that. But for those who do not want to be arrested, just return whatever that is illegal, particularly with firearms, and those supplying ammunition too. There is we have evidence. We have evidence now that there are people from within the force also supplying ammunition. So we are working on it. The last time I spoke to commander was last year December. So we are tracking some of our own men, and they'll be disciplined. They'll face the law and they'll be dismissed outright. So that's something we've
just dismissed. You're not going to be charging them.
Both criminally charged and dismissed at the same time. So it's not double jeopardy. One is administrative, the other one is criminal. So we've had a discussion towards I think with the commander last year during the close of he had a parade for the close of it, and we discussed, and he provided information to our intel team. So we are working on it, and we've done this work, but we'll be increasing the tempo in the coming, going towards the election. This year we'll be focusing on operational wise, enforcing the law to get rid of some of this. But again, it will be driven by intelligence, people with information, and the good thing is that people are reporting each other, so it helps us to do this. But we will extend our support, particularly for defense, to support us in this journey towards the proper election proper. So this is the post-election process. Although it's particularly focused on some parts, but it's leading to the election. So we will increase the tempo as we go. But again, like I said, we need funding to support all this awareness. Now, awareness is one. When I say awareness, it's not only election, but it's the firearm thing too. We need to continuously drive to the people that you need to return these things. Otherwise, it's no longer peacemaking. We're doing the arrest.
Yes.
And we are ably supported by the Counter-Terrorist Act, something that is contentious, but as it is, we'll see how we go with that.
I think, Commissioner, can I ask, seeing that we're on this agenda of illegal firearms, are you at liberty to share some data as to seizure of illegal firearms at this stage?
Sorry, sir, I cannot, top of my head, I don't have the information right now to share with you.
Okay, I'll just start again. Based on intelligence, in your view, what is the ratio of firearms in the hands of civilians relative to law enforcement agencies on the ground?
I think the firepower for the both security force are adequate for the country. But for those in illegal, there are some that we take. But there are some that are kept hidden and something lost and they don't disclose, and Intel sometimes it's forthcoming, sometimes Intel do not disclose some of these things.
From the top of your head, are you able to disclose the data on prosecutions in relation to illegal firearms since 2023?
14 successful, those that have been successfully prosecuted. That's not for the entire country, but that's particularly for the Highlands.
And do you, in your operations, have any targets before 2027 in relation to seizure, disarmament?
We will continue to do what we do. We will continue to do what we do and increase the tempo.
All right.
Election is only one part, but after election, we understand the post-violence after election, so it's a continuous pre-post, and after elections. So it's an ongoing thing with support from our law enforcement.
We had 3 years. We had the last election in 2022. So the member of the committee is asking, since 2023, can you later provide the data?
Yes, I can.
Because you've got 3 years.
Sure.
You'll still talk about after election 2027 to take action. No, we were asking since 2023, provide the data.
So I have the data, but it's not readily available. I will provide. Thank you.
In following up some of your responses, and again, the reason why we are asking about elections is because we know that it is a significant activity in the life of the country, and leading up to it and during the conduct of it, there are significant resources that will be allocated to, or will be, or should have been, I mean, we'll get to that later, that should have been allocated to your agency plus PNGDF and others. And those resources could also be used to ensure that future illegal activities is, I guess, minimized, because normally you would not have access to significant resources. You will only have access to significant resources during elections, and hence the line of questioning when it comes in relation to illegal weapons. So I want to ask that question. In terms of your funding, how much of the election funding would you need this year? Because you have to, as you said, this is pre-election, you have to get certain things in order, and in order to do that, you need funding. If you did submit for funding to Treasury, how much did you ask for? And how much did you receive in the 2026 budget, if you asked for any funding at all this year to prepare for the elections next year?
Thank you, sir. For this year, we have 700 plus million for the recurrent and PIP, but we have not asked for the election budget yet. 2022, 194 million, but we had a shortfall with air support, so we asked. We will be asking for more on top of 194 million, but the first trunk will be for the awareness and intel. We have yet to submit that budget. We will soon.
And are you submitting that for next year, not this year?
We will submit this year. We have submitted the election budget. We have not submitted for last year because we understand every time we go back, they say you have 200 million for PIP. So that was the experience. So we have the budget. I think from my head, we have not submitted the budget for the election.
Are you using part of that 200 million PIP, assuming you get it, to, I guess, prepare or build your capacity so that you can use that capacity for the elections?
Yes, we have done. We have done. In part, the accommodation for our police officers and the recruitment phase. And some of the funding we used for awareness and intel getting ongoing. But we have not asked for the election budget for 2027 yet, and we will.
You'll be asking for it towards the end of this year? Would that give you enough time to, first of all, access the cash, and then second of all, to deploy or purchase the logistics or whatever else you need before the conduct of the elections, do you think?
We will ask at the end of March this year. End of March. next month, end of March.
So that's your submission to the 2027 budget, right?
Election, yes. Procurement is the biggest challenge we face.
Hence my questioning.
Well, you keep on saying biggest challenge. We've identified a challenge. It's
Yes.
a procurement challenge. That's why the chairman is asking. Secretary Treasury is there. Preparation is this year. The challenge is well known. Don't repeat it. What are you doing about it? Interagency coordination. This is the preparation year.
How long does it take you to get procurement going? Let's just say you go out for tender, the various suppliers submit their bids, it goes through assessment. How long is that process when you finally award a contract, make payment, and then receive whatever it is you're procuring? How long is that process?
Normally 2 years. From my experience, the last experience was 2 years, but in 2022, we wrote directly to NEC to bypass that process. So we took control of the procurement and it did fast track. We wrote to NEC detailing our budget plan for the election, so we got all our tied and we went to the plan for procurement. We took ownership of the procurement, but we had a committee that oversee the procurement plan. So that was how we managed 2022.
So assuming, as you said, you are going to submit for your election needs to Treasury next month, unless there is some extra money lying around where the government can give it to you this year. Most likely you will get that money in the budget in November. That money might be made available to you in January, perhaps, unless government is paying other outstanding bills and not funding agencies at that time. So given all of those realities, do you think it's wise that you haven't, I guess, submitted for funding and then gone out to procure early? Why haven't you gone out early to procure, knowing these problems, knowing that it takes 2 years or whatever, and then you can, if you compress that time frame from 2 years, if you take over and get special consideration by NEC to bypass some of these processes, from 2 years, how short do you compress it to? 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months? What is it?
We realized the police realized the planning phase, the proper implementation, and we made that known during last week during the date 2027 should have been planned a year before this year. So we realized the planning. So everything revolves around planning. We'd like to submit the budget with the planning. Now it's a bit late. So we, like I said, we provide a secret order. The planning should emerge from it, IDEC or the EC. And then we can submit budget along that line, overall plan. But it's not only the police; it's the every agency that support the police. So, in my statement last week, departmental heads meeting in APEC, I said planning, and that's why the biggest fear. Planning was late. This is very late. This is late, and I said this should have been done the year before last year, and that's how we managed 2022. We are planning.
That comes back to the point. We've already identified in our report that one of the major reasons for the failures in the 2022 elections was the late planning and the late submission for budget. That came from Commissioner Manning and Brigadier General Goina, and it's actually in our report, which you assured us that your department has read the report. And in our recommendations, there are very clear timelines on some of these things, including going out for funding, and in fact starting last year. So I'm assuming either those who are tasked with planning in your organization did not read our report, did not care that it was endorsed by Parliament, and just decided not to take carriage of recommendations that your own Commissioner Manning made to the committee. That's what I'm suggesting to you, and I think that's what we are suggesting here. And now you are telling us again that you're late, which was our fear as a committee, which is why it's in our recommendations that you start early. So, in light of all of this, how do you assure our people that you are ready to conduct the 2027 elections. I mean, it's one thing to say, look, we're waiting for the Electoral Commissioner to give us polling booths and things like that. We understand that. But the other thing is, okay, there are things like, as you said, logistics. You're going to need vehicles. You're going to need helicopters or aircraft or whatever. I mean, aren't those sorts of things you can do early? I remember in the 22 elections, our elections almost failed, except through the goodness of the Australian people. The Australian government had to intervene. Now, we asked the Australians to come and give evidence, and they declined, and really they can't, because they're a sovereign country. But they sent aircraft here, they sent personnel, I think they even printed our ballot papers or something like that. So, me like talk bisindingly, I think you Papua New Guinea no same lo des plus something. Many of us are highly educated, and yet we are unable, our level of incompetence is such that the Australians had to step in quietly, do all of this work for us, and then, even to this day, we don't know the extent, except that we could see Australian aircraft flying all over the place to make sure. I mean, the Australians probably ensured that our elections didn't fail. Now, as a member of Parliament, I'm ashamed by that, given that we are, and I'm not saying I don't like the Australians, not at all. I'm just saying that it is this kind of lack of planning, which, yumino na tokosem, or yumino sabe. Because, the police and the Defence Force actually informed us in 2023 during the inquiry that these were the things we need to fix. And now we find on the eve of the elections, or something where Yumi at Togosem, Yumi need los tretim, Yumi no tretim. I mean, do you see where we're coming from,
Yes,
Deputy
yes,
Commissioner?
yes.
I'm not going to say that it's your fault,
Yes.
but you're sitting here because, and by the way, where is your Commissioner, if I may ask?
He's out on duty travel to Australia. He'll be back tomorrow.
Okay, all right. Perhaps in the next inquiry, he will drop some of those trips and turn up, so that the people of Papua New Guinea can be given some assurance that the Commissioner is worried about what might happen next year during the elections. But thank you from me.
Acting Commissioner, if I could just ask a series of short questions. We're discussing budgets, and obviously whether or not the Constabulary has been given allocations specifically for election preparation this year. I think we've established that has not been the case. Correct?
So I have to consult the budget and see the budget books. I have not. I've been focused on the PEP, so I have not seen the budget, but I have yet to confirm that. Thank you.
But just recapping your initial remarks, I'm going to safely assume, based on your earlier remarks, that there's no specific headline, no line item for 2027 election preparation in this year's budget book, correct?
Correct.
Sorry, Mr. YK is here, Secretary Treasury. Can you assist us with that response? Is there, just from the top of your head, I'm sure, is there a specific line item for 2027 election preparation for the police force in the budget books?
Wena, please, can we have these mics on?
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, the Chair and the members of the committee. And thank you, Honorable Ido. The short answer, specifically for police, no.
Okay, thank you. So, but election coordination is interagency coordination aspect, although the legal or constitutional mandate is vested on the Electoral Commission. Is there, in your, and maybe the Electoral Commissioner can assist if we have difficulty in this reply, in relation to coordination of the elections between interagencies, is there an agreement or MOA or some legal instrument that governs coordination and implementation of the election process with respect to, example, logistics and security and all the other aspects of an electioneering?
So I think from the top of my head, I think the electoral commissioner is responsible for elections. IDEC provides the support. From the top of my head, I don't think they have the constitutional right to take that power from the commissioner. They only provide the support.
Correct.
They only provide the support to the EC. EC can take all this, but for coordination purpose, for all the line agencies working towards the elections, it's the IDEC.
Yes.
We are part of IDEC, but in some instances, we work directly with the EC.
Okay, so understanding that, so in terms of coordination of the aspects of security, logistics, and you did make me, which is something I want to come to, which is you pointed out the difficulties with procurement.
Yes.
For preparations and of course coordination and implementation at that aspect. Specifically for security, for instance, have there been any measures taken in your mind in terms of proposed legislative amendments or apart from NEC submissions or cabinet decisions, which is policy, is there any way this can be legislated you think?
The last conversation we had was to take that powers off from the commission, and that's something internal we can manage, to give us powers to procure. So I have yet to consult my FAS. We said this last year. So give us these powers, because from our experience, yes, we applied for some fuel some years back. It took us 2 years for that to be approved, and that experience propelled us to write directly during election to NEC to give that power to us, the commissioner, so we can spend below, I think 5 million and below, so we can directly procure.
When you say commissioner, are you referring to the police commissioner?
Police commissioner.
Yes. Okay.
So he has the powers to procure things, particularly relating to the election. So the commission responsible for procurement, I think for me it exists on paper, but the reality doesn't happen that way. Okay. 2 years is quite a long time for fuel alone.
It is a very long time.
Very long time.
So if hypothetically, for fuel requirements for 2027, we should have requisitioned it last year.
Yes.
Have we?
For us internally, I think we've managed close partners with those fuel dealers, particularly the F-gas and fuel. So with fuel, we should be okay. We will be okay.
All right. Thank you.
Just 2 questions to our acting police commissioner. One is having confirmed by Secretary Treasury that there's no budget provision for your operation preparations this year. Are there administrative procedures that you and both of you take, Secretary Oike yourself and the police commissioner, to identify this year's budget and move funds, which is the powers that both of you have, to allow the operational requirements in preparation for the election? I think it can be done. Second question, with regards to the report, it was highlighted that particularly through the Defence Force intelligence, they mapped the country into red zones. Have you, as of now, in preparation for the this election coming next year, have you identified provinces and electorates that are concerned to you with regards to security? Have you or not yet?
We have done, sir. We have done since last year. We have deployed our officers into places, and like I mentioned earlier in my statement, relatively peaceful provinces are going to the dock. So that's why we're reversing the provinces, particularly those that on social media. So we've done police work, not necessarily for the elections, but the general policing in the specific provinces. So we've deployed our men on the ground, working closely with the state.
Well, specific for the elections, have you established any specific preventive systems or warning systems in these red zones so that this doesn't happen again in these provinces and electorates that we know where the high risk is in terms of election security?
In short, sir, we have, and we've already worked on some of the provinces. The biggest issue for us, like I said, will be the firearms and ammo. But on top of that, there are violent crimes committed, and we're taking that. Basically, the general security, the red zones, So we have.
So can you confidently assure the country that in terms of these red zones, you are better prepared to manage?
We are better prepared to manage together as a team. Not only police, but we appeal to all community leaders to come support police work, and together we can do that.
Just on that subject, Acting Commissioner, is there a independent report? I think just rephrasing, independent report that addresses or identifies provinces or districts or electorates that are volatile relative to the other? Is that an independent report per se?
Not from other organizations that I can think of, but from my PPs and divisional commanders, yes, they've been given reports of hotspots that we need to focus on, and that's basically internal police confidential matters that we've been, like Mr. Temu said, Dr. Temu said, we've taken action. But
yes,
for the overall security of the country, we have to get that report. But we heavily rely on our PPCs.
Yeah, in terms of planning, I asked this question because it informs the question of planning an election. It would be reasonable to think that one would have a dashboard based on an independent report that identifies and isolates hotspots or areas, so that when resource is allocated or personnel is allocated and resourcing, those are the strategic areas that one must look at in terms of managing a safe, peaceful and fair election.
So I think we have that. Not I think we have that on our dashboard. We get monthly briefs from our PPCs, so we know where the hotspots are.
Is that something that can be published for the public's consumption, or at least for
yes, we
election
can.
use?
It's something that we cannot hide. We need, like I said, community support. This year we have committed, like I said, for the first time, we will be giving 1 million KNH to the PPCs to help in the operational, so they can focus specifically in the areas, in the provinces. So we have the hotspots, the weekly reports and the monthly briefs, and we know where the trouble zones are.
Pre-2017 elections, there was an independent report prepared by our partners, bilateral partners. I think the Australian government supported this initiative, and there was a official report published for purposes of election preparations in 2017. Is there something similar? I want to ask again, because it's absolutely necessary. In the event of, I ask this because in the event of election petitions that will come up, or election managing, which is highly volatile relative to the questions conversation we just had earlier in relation to illegal firearms being rampant. Is there, do you think it's necessary that we should have one independent security document pre-elections, so that would inform as a standard document, standard manual, if you like, adopted by IDAC and Cabinet, of course, before we implement or deploy?
So from the top of my head, we did not implement in 2022, but we can do that. It's vital. Electoral, everything to do with the elections, from firearms to, and even electoral officers too. So it can be done.
Should be done.
It should be done.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, before we move on, we'll direct some questions to the representative from the PNGDF, and we might refer back to you, Dr. Mitna. I just wanted to remind you of one of the matters that came up, one of the incidents that came up during the inquiry that we had, which was important, and that is that there was the election violence here in Port Moresby, which was widely captured on social media. I think for one of the seats and you know, a group of supporters from a certain candidate walked across to Vision City and purchased bush knives, brand new bush knives, and they came out and started attacking supporters of one of the other candidates right out here in Port Moresby. Now, that question was raised to the commissioner at the time, and the commissioner indicated, and I think we had some of our other intelligence agencies also here during that inquiry. And the message we got was that no one was aware that that was going to happen in Port Moresby. Also in relation to the burning of the ballot boxes in 2 electorates in Morobe province. The indication from, I think, your commissioner was that you were not aware, none of the intelligence agencies were aware that that was going to happen. Now, I'm pointing that out because this is information that came from the PNGC and it came from the PNGDF, and I'm pointing it out to you so that you can bear in mind, you know, the preparations that you have going forward, that this is what happened. And it shows a lapse in whatever you want to call it, coordination, intelligence gathering, all of those sorts of things. And this is, I think, the concern of most Papua New Guineans. They want to know that when they go to cast their votes in the next election, that there is a decent amount of safety. They want to be safe doing that, and during the counting and those sorts of activities, the people that are going to be interested and involved, they want to know that there's strong security around that and there's a relative safety. So I just wanted to remind you of that, because those are things that I now report, obviously. But thank you very much for helping us with some of those details today. I now go to Brigadier Opa. Again, it's the same thing. You'll obviously be working with the PNGDF, and while I'm asking you that question, can someone come and turn on his microphone just in case? So, or is it on already? For the PNGDF, and I have to say, you know, the commander that was here previously, he gave us a very in-depth, and I was impressed with his contribution to the inquiry. One of the things he told us was that they received the funding late, your organization received funding late to procure the things you needed for the elections. In fact, while he was giving evidence in, I think, 2023, he said, and he showed us a picture of all of the vehicles and other things that the PNGDF needed to help with the elections. They arrived, I think, the week before he came to this inquiry. So in fact, none of those vehicles were available during the election period. And he told us that the reason for that was the delayed procurement. Again, we've had the same thing from our friends in the RPNGC. Now, I have 2 questions in relation to that. Number 1, will you be procuring some more equipment for the 2027 elections? If so, has that process already, is it already underway? If not, why not? And the other question, which is probably a little bit silly, what happened to all of that equipment, all of that brand new equipment, I don't know how many cars and everything, that came in for the 2026 election, 22 elections rather, that you've received? What's happened to all of that? I'm just interested in that, if you could enlighten us. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee. So if I may, I'll answer those questions and also perhaps go back and just explain a summary, give a summary, and you can take questions from there. So with regard to your question, yes, indeed, we received the funding late. And when those assets or vehicles and equipment were purchased, they were distributed to all the PNGDF establishments across the country. and some of those were given to, most were held in the transport pool for use as required. And so many of those have been used over time, and now require work on it to be operational. For our preparations, I'll just cover that in the brief what we have done. So for the Papua New Guinea Defence Force, typically we are requested by Electoral Commission to provide certain tasks to assist them to implement the elections. So some of this would mainly 3 areas: for security for their personnel deployed, especially at polling stations and counting areas. So that's one of the typical tasks that we do. The other major one is just transportation and logistics, particularly transportation of election materials and personnel to polling sites in the remote parts. And also where there are hotspots, we try and we work that out, so we go to those places. The average number of troops we deploy on elections are around 1,000. In 2022, there was some other incidents that occurred that required us to go up to 1,500. So those are the typical tasks that we are required. But because of how we are structured and under the Act, we have to be requested to do certain tasks by the police commissioner. Even when Electoral Commission requests, then the police commissioner have to write to the commander requesting assistance, and that's how we get a call out for the election. And that is also where we decide we can do this, we can't do that because of this and that. So the gaps are also identified at that time based on what we can do to assist police. So from a budget perspective, in 2022, our operational budget from our joint operation was 98 million, and it was well justified in the document for those monies. And there were additional funding that was given to us, so was promised to us, so that on record it went to 105 million. And just to give you an appreciation of the breakup, the mobilization in 2022, we had 3 phases: mobilization, execution, and the post-election phase. So we had 32 million for mobilization, 48 for execution, and 25 million for the post-election. In comparison, for 2027, again, I have behind me the Chief of Joint Operations, Colonel Mark Kelleton, and his team have put together an estimated budget, I must emphasize. It's yet to our secretary and the team also are looking at it, but we have itemized it, and the total budget that we have estimated to request for this operation is 120 million. So that's additional 40 million from the 2022 budget. And also a key point to note with this particular budget is that the mobilization for this budget is 70 million, which is significantly more than the 2022. And the main reason is for us to prepare well, because for us, moving logistics and the way we assist the police and the Electoral Commission, we provide more or less provide the security bubble on the outside. So the task that we do to assist the Electoral Commission, having people at the polling sites are like directly involved. But we normally would stay back when situations escalate. We would have the ability to provide the reinforcement because we just cannot be everywhere. And the other main task we do is we focus on the vital assets, government property, so on and so forth. So we don't lose sight of these things. Whatever happens, we must ensure that electricity flows water flow. So this is kind of the operations that are the tasks that we consider when we are involved in election operations. So mobilization is very important for us, and chair and committee members, there's two types of capabilities we help, and logistic is the biggest component, and our budget is mainly to rehabilitate our current capabilities, especially our aircrafts and the ships. Although our partners assist with maintenance of this, particularly the ships, we are also required to have our own patrols in between. And they have a cycle that we depend, and we can't depend on the cycle. If the ship is down when that program is not yet, it's not the time for its maintenance, then we have to find funds to do that. And that's why we put in a large component to make sure those are key assets, particularly the ships and the aircraft. Currently, we only have 3 small aircrafts that are operational. They can't do much. They are mainly for reconnaissance and almost, if you like, just flying 3 or 4 people to the areas of operation. We are now in the process of recovering one of our CASA aircrafts, and we are waiting for it to be tested here and then flown to Indonesia in Bandung to do a full service. So we are hoping that that could be done before the election. So it will assist with logistics. Although our partners come to assist us, chair and committee members, particularly with rotary wing support, which is the main type of support that we need for elections in our country because of the terrain. We do have an arrangement, but that's a contractual arrangement with a civilian company. So they have their own policies. So if an incident happens in an area where they consider it high risk, then they can't fly. So we need to have our own assets to do that, or have a backup plan. So, and we normally discuss with the police to ensure that we have that, that redundancy, so that if they cannot support, we will come in over the top and use our own resources. So that's as far as I can go for now. But we do have a budget. You itemized it, and we hope that we can be funded in earnest, so we can prepare well. I think if we prepare well, we will do better than what we did in 2022. And at the moment, our partners are also, we will be doing this planning considering the assistance in it. So this budget that we are giving may be reduced because of if they affirm their support with the assets they will bring to support us. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Brigadier. Questions?
Thank you, Brigadier. To us as a committee, the Defence Force has always been very well prepared in most of the elections. So we commend you highly for the structures that you operate, and particularly now focusing on preparing better for 2027 elections. In terms of the joint operations between yourself and the RPNGC, have you signed an agreement already, or are you in the process of planning the operational agreement signing, or is there one that you are talking about?
Normally, it would come under the task. So, for example, if we are deployed to the highlands, then if we are in a particular province, there's an assistant commissioner of police that actually heads the operation. So all our elements are kind of assigned under him, and we conduct. But the 70 million that I've mentioned for this particular election, a good component of that will be used for our shaping operations, which have already commenced. And we kind of piggybacked on some of the SOE arrangements that are currently in place, and having our soldiers there, we are able to do our we would like to say use more of a soft power approach just to, prepare the area of operation when we do go in. So there's no agreement, Honorable Committee Member.
In terms of intelligence, from the briefings that we have gathered, it appears that PNG Defence Force intelligence gathering is a bit more advanced than the other intelligence agencies, including NIO as well as the RPNGC. In the process of gathering and analyzing intelligence, how do you share this intelligence information? And with the Chairman's earlier comment on the NCD experience, nobody knew that it would happen, and so sharing, and how do you respond quickly?
Well, while we have the reach there to collect the information, I would say that the sharing to enable the response is something that we really have to improve in, because we do have the reach in most of the provinces. We have people there according to our structures, and they do the collection, and they normally speak to the in the provinces. There are provincial intelligence committees within the provincial administration structure, so our people are encouraged to share those information also, but of course ensuring that the headquarters is aware and they conform to our security protocols. But we do share information with our police colleagues in the province and also here in Port Moresby.
Just a follow-up to that. Intelligence, as you know, it's your business, yourselves and the RPNGC. Intelligence is only useful if it is obtained and used quickly, and it comes back to getting some clarity on the question asked by Honorable Pukatemo. Do you have a mechanism that can, between all of you, given that obviously all of you're in the same kind of business but in different areas? I'm just concerned that is there a way, or would you recommend again a mechanism that would help you to say share intelligence quickly and timely? Because if we find out someone has the information about an attack at a polling site or whatever, or there's a planned event happening, and the event occurs and then we get the information later, then obviously it's useless. So is there such a mechanism? If not, do we have the ability to build something like that so that all of you can share and respond? What's stopping us from doing that?
I'll just answer and also probably defer to the acting commissioner to say a few words. So under the NIO and now the Prime Minister's department, the creation of a national security agency, if you like, and so what has happened is each of the security agencies and our intelligence elements have been assigned to form a joint intelligence group, and that group is kind of has all the security agencies, intelligence people working together. So that's something that I think we took from the experience of our APEC, hosting of APEC in 2018. So this will provide the kind of the platform for us to share information, and then we are better posted to respond to events before they actually happen. So that jig has been established and is now is in force. We've assigned people to that, and I think they're working out of Oakley House. For us, one of the best opportunities for us, because of law, we can't execute even if we have information. So we have to share with police, and if it's a situation that they will require our help, then they have to request, so that we are lawfully allowed to take part in such operation. And the current Kumul 23, as mentioned by the acting commissioner, based out of Mendi, they seem to be doing the kind of work that, you know, is highly intelligence driven, and they are doing targeted operations where they've received information, cycled it, analyzed it, and then used it for operation. So those kind of arrangements are useful for us, because then we are called out and it's okay for us to assist the police to execute some of these tasks with regard to weapons and cases where they are located.
Thank you. You got any questions? Oh, Deputy Commissioner.
So I think to answer your question regarding the intelligence sharing, I think some things have worked, some of them. From our operational experience, I think working closely with the defense, we've shared information. While the JIG apparatus and the intel are being created, the effectiveness are yet to be realized, but at the ground level, I think we've shared information. Normally, coming back to Dr. Temosa, when defense does not come out, we write to NEC for them to be called out, and that's where we use them. I mean, not use them, though we work closely, but intelligence sharing, it's currently ongoing. What we've done in program that some news we've not disclosed, but from the arrest that we've effected, it's basically on intel-driven ops shared by the defense and police. So very effective, and going forward, I think we'll build up from that experience, sharing between partners we trust. Some things, information too, like the chair said, information is useful if you make use of it. Some of these meetings take 2 weeks. We need actions to be taken in that split of within certain time frames, and that's been proven effective, and we'll continue that going into the elections. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy. You know, one of the things that I'm concerned about is, and you know, no disrespect to the RPNGC, I think all of you are, you know, given the enormous law and order issues around the country, you're always at the forefront every single day. Even in the city, you know, there's tribal fights going on almost daily, and you know, it's in your face all the time as the RPNGC. And I wanted to ask this because the elections might be a one-off event, but when it happens, it's a huge logistical exercise. You yourself said there might be 12,000 security personnel involved. When that happens, it adds an additional strain to your capability. And you know, apart from having the PNGDF as a backup, you need kind of to have this brain sitting at the back that's coordinating all of that, that's not so much in the front line. And this is where I think, you know, just me listening to, and this is not the first time we've come across this gap in intelligence. This arrangement that you have now, that's mentioned by Brigadier Opa, where you've got like a national security apparatus now kind of set up somewhere in Mosby. Is that now going to be the way going forward? And if so, how is it resourced, and is it effective? Maybe I come back to you, Brigadier Opa, because you're sort of ready to say something there.
Chair, JIG, the current construct of JIG is kind of still a work in progress, but ideally the JIG should not be an agency that sort of involves itself in policy things. If it's going to be an operational platform, that it should have that as its mandate. But under a policy or a legislation, I don't know. But I think it should be for operations. That way, whatever information is collected and analyzed is quickly disseminated to relevant security agencies to execute in their own areas. So, and that worked in APEC, and I think that's the best approach for it.
Thank you. Deputy Commissioner, you want to add something to that before I move on? Okay, thank you.